Did you know that one of the film world's most shocking rumors is the legendary tales of famous females who allegedly sold their virginity for million-dollar contracts? This isn't just gossip. It's a glimpse into a ruthless system where innocence became a bargaining chip and ambition could demand the ultimate sacrifice. Are you ready to step into the world that existed behind the velvet ropes? Let us begin. Pierre Angelie. Pierre Angelie's beauty seemed otherworldly, a vision so delicate and pure that Hollywood quickly claimed her as one of its own. Behind the scenes, however, Pierre's journey was anything but a fairy tale. Upon arriving in Los Angeles, she was swept into a world ruled by powerful men, where contracts were negotiated in whispers, and her youth became a bargaining chip in deals never formally recorded. Pierre's story is one of vulnerability. A young woman, not yet ready for the harsh realities of stardom, suddenly thrust into a labyrinth of secret pacts and silent sacrifices. The studios, eager to capitalize on her innocence, pushed Pierre into circles where every gesture, every promise, carried a hidden price. Producers and executives viewed her not only as an actress, but as an investment, one whose worth was measured by her willingness to comply with unspoken demands. It was whispered that Pierre's ascent was fueled by more than just talent, that her purity, so celebrated in public, was quietly bartered for opportunity behind closed doors. Despite her luminous presence on screen, Pierre struggled privately with the emotional weight of decisions she never wanted to make. Her relationships faltered under the strain, and her spirit dimmed beneath the pressures of a system that valued her youth above all else. In the end, Pierre Angelie's story serves as a haunting reminder of the cost exacted by a Hollywood that devoured innocence and called it destiny. Diana Dors. Diana Dors burst onto the scene as Britain's bold answer to Marilyn Monroe, glamorous, sensual, and seemingly untouchable. Yet the real story of Diana's Hollywood debut is much darker, a tale written not in headlines, but in the margins of private contracts and whispered promises. From her earliest days in the industry, Diana understood that her image was her most valuable asset, and that power in Hollywood was never gained in public view. Arriving in America, Diana was quickly enveloped by a system where her beauty was treated as currency. Studio heads and wealthy producers eyed her not just for her acting, but for what her youth and allure could buy them behind the scenes. It is said that the roles Diana won and the opportunities that materialized were the result of silent arrangements, agreements where the terms were never discussed openly, but were well understood by all parties involved. The seductive persona that Diana projected on screen became both her ticket to stardom and the mask that hid the heavy price she paid for fame. Behind her confident laughter and captivating smile, Diana carried the burden of having been traded as a trophy, a prize in a game of power that left her forever changed. The shadow of those early choices lingered long after the applause faded, marking Diana's life with a bittersweet sense of triumph and loss. Her legacy is not just one of success, but of survival in an industry where the cost of a dream was often too high to bear. Sandra Dee. To an entire generation, Sandra Dee was the embodiment of innocence, sweet, wholesome, and endlessly optimistic. But behind the iconic smile and doe-eyed gaze was a young woman struggling to navigate the treacherous undercurrents of Hollywood's golden age. The very qualities that made Sandra so appealing to audiences also made her vulnerable to those who saw youth as an investment to be exploited. From a young age, Sandra was surrounded by handlers and executives who carefully crafted her public image while making far more personal demands in private. Rumors swirled that the meteoric rise of her career was fueled by agreements that went far beyond the signing of contracts. It was whispered that her virginity, a symbol of her purity and marketability, was used as leverage in secret negotiations, exchanged for the roles that would make her a star. For Sandra, the line between professional ambition and personal sacrifice was blurred from the very beginning. The pressures to comply were immense, and the consequences of saying no were made painfully clear. Though she captivated millions on screen, Sandra's private life was marked by a sense of loss and disillusionment, the scars of a youth shaped not by her own choices, but by the silent demands of an industry that claimed to cherish her innocence while quietly destroying it. In the end, Sandra Dee's story is a sobering testament to the hidden costs of Hollywood fame. Marilyn Monroe. No name in Hollywood conjures images of glamour and tragedy quite like Marilyn Monroe. To the world, she was the ultimate symbol of desire, a vision of beauty, charm, and vulnerability wrapped into one unforgettable package. But Marilyn's rise to stardom was paved with far more than talent and luck. From her earliest days in the industry, Marilyn was introduced to a world of private parties and exclusive gatherings where the true price of fame was silently negotiated. Studio moguls and influential businessmen saw in Marilyn not just a marketable star, but a means to satisfy their own desires. The whispers surrounding her career spoke of unspoken deals and silent sacrifices, arrangements that promised a path to fame in exchange for personal submission. For Marilyn, the choice was stark: accept the terms of this unwritten contract, or risk vanishing into obscurity. The pressures she faced were immense, and the toll on her spirit was profound. Behind the dazzling smile and breathless laughter was a woman haunted by the knowledge that her innocence had become a commodity, sold for the promise of stardom. Marilyn's story is one of resilience and heartbreak, a cautionary tale of how Hollywood's brightest lights often cast the darkest shadows. Her legacy endures not just as a screen siren, but as a symbol of the price paid by those who dared to dream in an unforgiving world. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's voice enchanted the world, her image forever tied to youthful hope and the magic of the Wizard of Oz. But behind the enduring smile and the eternal refrain of "Over the Rainbow," Judy's real-life journey through Hollywood was marked by relentless exploitation and heartache. Arriving in Hollywood as a child, Judy was quickly thrust into the studio system's unforgiving machinery, where her every move was controlled, scrutinized, and manipulated by those whose interest lay not in her well-being, but in her profitability. Studio executives didn't just mold her public persona, they dictated her private life with chilling precision. Whispered stories from those years speak of the invisible contracts forced upon her, expectations that went far beyond acting lessons and public appearances. For Judy, the protection that should have come with childhood fame was nowhere to be found. Instead, her innocence became just another asset for studio bosses to barter away. There are countless tales of Judy being pressured to submit to the hidden desires of those in power, with promises of superstardom dangled before her as both carrot and stick. As she grew older, the scars of those early betrayals only deepened. The price Judy paid for her stardom was far more than the world ever saw: lost youth, shattered trust, and a lifetime haunted by secrets she could never escape. Her tragic fate stands as a powerful indictment of a system that preyed on its brightest talents, sacrificing innocence on the altar of fame and fortune. Susan Peters. Susan Peters entered Hollywood as a beacon of innocence and hope, her radiant smile captivating audiences and executives alike. But beneath the glow of her early promise lay a much harsher reality. From her very first auditions, Susan found herself drawn into a world where opportunities came at a cost, and those costs were never openly discussed. It's said that before she ever set foot on a major film set, Susan was brought to private gatherings where the terms of her future were discussed, not as a negotiation between equals, but as a quiet transaction in which her youth was the unspoken currency. Powerful men, hidden behind genial smiles and polished words, saw Susan as both a fresh face for their films and a vulnerable young woman to be shaped for their private agendas. Rumors followed her ascent, suggesting that the roles she landed and the rapid pace of her career were bought not just with talent, but with silent compliance to the system's darkest demands. In those smoke-filled rooms, Susan's fate was decided by whispers and nods, her innocence traded for access to the Hollywood elite. For Susan, the cost of fame was felt in every quiet moment, every unspoken regret. She carried the weight of decisions made far from the public eye, her spirit bruised by the knowledge that her greatest asset in Hollywood was the very thing she wished she could protect. Susan Peters' story remains a sobering lesson about what was taken from so many in pursuit of the American dream. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow's platinum blonde hair and magnetic screen presence made her one of the first true sex symbols of Hollywood. To the public, she was the original blonde bombshell, a star who seemed to move effortlessly from one hit to another. But Jean's path to stardom was far more complex and far less innocent than the shimmering image projected on movie posters. Introduced to the ruthless world of Hollywood power brokers at a young age, Jean quickly learned that talent alone was not enough to guarantee success. Behind the scenes, meetings with influential producers and studio executives were less about her artistic ambitions and more about her willingness to conform to the system's unspoken rules. Stories abound of secret deals sealed with more than a signature, of Jean's youth and beauty being leveraged in private to secure her place atop the Hollywood hierarchy. She became acutely aware that, in the eyes of those in power, her value extended far beyond her ability to act. It was her innocence, her willingness to comply, that made her a star. For Jean Harlow, the glittering lights of Hollywood always came with shadows. The compromises she made and the demands she met weighed heavily on her, shaping both her career and her private life. Her tragic early death left countless questions unanswered, but one truth remains clear. The price of fame in Hollywood's golden age was often far steeper than audiences ever imagined. Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood captivated audiences from her earliest days as a child star, her transformation from precocious youngster to beloved leading lady unfolding before the eyes of millions. But as she grew, so too did the pressures and the dangers of Hollywood's hidden world. Natalie's beauty and talent attracted not just adoring fans, but also the attention of powerful men who controlled the fate of every aspiring actress in the industry. The transition from innocent child to adult star was fraught with peril. Insiders whispered of private meetings and secretive gatherings where Natalie, still barely more than a girl, was expected to play a role that extended far beyond her on-screen characters. It was said that the price for continued success in the industry was compliance with unspoken demands, her innocence treated as a bargaining chip in the hands of those who could make or break a career with a single phone call. For Natalie, the struggle to protect her autonomy was a constant battle, one that left its mark on every aspect of her life. Despite her public image as the girl next door, Natalie carried the private wounds of someone who had been forced to surrender more than she ever wanted. Her story is a testament to both the intoxicating allure and the unforgiving cruelty of Hollywood, where innocence was less a shield and more an invitation to be devoured. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner's arrival in Hollywood was nothing short of sensational. A young woman of breathtaking beauty and raw magnetism, instantly declared the most beautiful animal in the world. But beneath the allure and the flashes of camera bulbs, Ava's journey was steeped in the silent bargains and invisible contracts that governed the careers of so many women of her era. From her first auditions, it became clear that Hollywood's gatekeepers valued her appearance as much as, if not more than, her acting ability. In those early years, Ava was often escorted to private dinners and secluded gatherings, far from the gaze of the public or the protection of family. It was at these exclusive events that the real decisions about her future were made. The promise of a coveted film role or a lucrative contract would be quietly linked to expectations that were never stated outright, but always understood. The system demanded that she trade more than just her time and talent. It expected a silent acquiescence to the personal desires of those in power. Ava quickly learned that beauty in Hollywood was a double-edged sword. It opened doors, but also came with a hidden price tag. Her journey to stardom was marked by moments of defiance and private anguish, as she navigated the treacherous line between what was demanded and what she could bear. Ava Gardner conquered Hollywood and the world, but the echoes of those early sacrifices haunted her, shaping the laughter, the love affairs, and the fierce independence that became her legacy. Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple was America's darling, a beacon of innocence and joy, who brought hope to millions during the darkest days of the Great Depression. Her cherubic face and sparkling curls made her the most famous child star in Hollywood history. But the machinery that built her up was the same one that threatened to consume her, caring little for the fragility of youth. Even as a minor, Shirley was not spared the hidden gears of an industry that viewed childlike purity as a resource to be mined for profit and influence. Stories circulated about the studio executives and powerful figures who dictated every aspect of her life, from the roles she played to the image she projected. Even more disturbing were the persistent rumors of Shirley being presented at private gatherings and meetings, her image leveraged to close business deals and curry favor among the industry elite. It was a world in which the safety net of childhood simply did not exist, where innocence was not a shield, but an invitation for exploitation. Though she was closely watched by her mother and a small circle of protectors, Shirley still faced the chilling reality that her value to Hollywood extended far beyond the silver screen. The emotional scars from those years never fully faded, though she would later become an advocate for children's rights in the industry. Shirley Temple's story is a sobering reminder that even the purest of faces were not immune to the dark bargains that lay beneath Hollywood's shimmering veneer. Lana Turner. Lana Turner's entry into Hollywood is the stuff of legend. Discovered by chance at a soda fountain, plucked from obscurity and thrust into a world of glitz and glamour. But Lana's real journey was far more complex and fraught with peril. Almost immediately, she was swept into the currents of a system that valued youth and beauty above all else, where talent was secondary to the willingness to play by unspoken rules. As a teenager, Lana found herself attending private dinners and secret gatherings, her youthful appearance the golden ticket that allowed her access to rooms where the true power brokers convened. In those rooms, the lines between professional opportunity and personal sacrifice blurred until they were all but indistinguishable. It was well known among insiders that roles and contracts were rarely won by merit alone. The most lucrative opportunities often went to those who acquiesced to the silent demands of men whose approval determined the fate of every hopeful actress. Lana quickly understood that the door to stardom was guarded by invisible hands demanding a steep price. The public may have seen her as the glamorous femme fatale, but behind that image was a young woman forced to make impossible choices just to survive in the world she'd always dreamed of joining. Scandal and heartbreak would follow her throughout her career, a testament to both her resilience and the enduring brutality of the system that made her a star. Peggy Cussings. Peggy Cussings, the Welsh beauty with a face that radiated innocence, arrived in Hollywood as the industry's next great promise. Yet, like so many before her, she quickly discovered that talent and good looks were only part of the equation for success. The real price of admission to Hollywood's inner circle was paid in private, behind closed doors, where the most important deals were made out of sight and off the record. From her very first contracts, Peggy was surrounded by a network of powerful figures whose intentions were hidden behind polite smiles and calculated offers. She was invited to events and gatherings where, beneath the veneer of support, the expectations for personal sacrifice became painfully clear. Rumors persisted that Peggy's rapid ascent was no accident, that it was, in part, facilitated by silent agreements in which her youth and innocence were traded for career advancement. It was an arrangement that left her feeling both privileged and powerless, a pawn in a game she never wanted to play. As Peggy matured and tried to assert control over her own life and choices, The industry's tolerance quickly waned. Her career, which had once seemed destined for greatness, was quietly derailed the moment she tried to reclaim her autonomy. Peggy Cussings's story is a poignant illustration of how Hollywood's golden promises could quickly turn to ash, leaving behind the bittersweet memory of what might have been. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake's signature peekaboo hairstyle and enigmatic beauty made her an unforgettable icon of classic Hollywood glamour. But behind the silver screen allure was a story marked by profound loneliness and exploitation. From the moment she caught the eye of Hollywood's decision-makers, Veronica was swept into a system that prized her looks above all else. She was paraded at exclusive parties and private gatherings, where the price of opportunity was always left unspoken, but never in doubt. Studio executives saw Veronica as both a star and a possession. Their personal investment in her success matched only by the demands they made behind closed doors. Whispered stories told of silent agreements, of roles and lucrative contracts granted not just on merit, but on the willingness to meet the personal expectations of those in power. The emotional toll was immense. Veronica's public image of cool, unapproachable mystery was mirrored in her private withdrawal from those around her, an act of self-preservation in a world that demanded so much and gave so little in return. Her refusal to fully submit to Hollywood's unwritten rules ultimately cost her dearly. As Veronica struggled to maintain her autonomy, her career suffered. What the world saw as sudden withdrawal and rebelliousness was, in truth, the silent scream of someone determined not to be devoured by a system that saw her youth as both an asset and a disposable commodity. Veronica Lake's legacy endures, not just as an icon of style, but as a symbol of the inner battles waged by women in Hollywood's golden age. Linda Darnell. Linda Darnell's rise to fame was meteoric, her striking beauty and poised elegance marking her as one of Hollywood's most promising stars. Yet from the very start, Linda's journey was shaped by forces far beyond her control. Behind her radiant public image, she endured unimaginable pressure to conform to the desires and expectations of the powerful men who orchestrated the inner workings of the film industry. Her innocence, so carefully constructed for public consumption, was viewed by studio executives as a resource to be exploited. It was whispered that Linda's ascent was accelerated not solely by her acting prowess, but by silent deals struck in the shadows. Deals where her youth and purity became bargaining chips at private dinners and late-night gatherings. Success came with invisible strings attached, and Linda quickly learned that her greatest asset in the eyes of those in charge was her willingness to comply with their hidden demands. Every new role, every major contract, seemed to come at the cost of yet another private sacrifice. Linda's personal life bore the scars of these early betrayals. She oscillated between periods of intense professional achievement and private sorrow, her trust in others deeply eroded by the knowledge that she had been sold, time and again, for someone else's gain. Her story is a poignant reminder that beneath the sparkling facade of stardom lay the harsh realities of an industry that thrived on consuming innocence and ambition in equal measure. Jane Powell. With her enchanting voice and fairy tale looks, Jane Powell was the embodiment of wholesome stardom in Hollywood's heyday. She radiated purity and charm, capturing the hearts of audiences with every performance. But Jane's public persona was carefully constructed by those who managed her career, and the reality of her experience was marked by the silent sacrifices required to maintain her place at the top. In the quiet corridors of Hollywood's elite, Jane was drawn into a world of secret arrangements and unspoken promises. Her youthful innocence was both her shield and her curse, attracting the attention of men whose influence extended well beyond the casting room. There were stories of private gatherings where the promise of future success was linked directly to the personal concessions she was willing to make, arrangements that left no written record, but whose impact would shape the course of her life. Jane faced the impossible task of balancing her hopes for stardom with the costs imposed by a system that saw her dreams as little more than a commodity. She smiled on stage, her performances full of hope and light, even as she bore the invisible burden of deals made far from the public eye. Jane Powell's legacy is a testament to her strength and endurance, a reminder of the high price so many paid for the chance to live out their dreams in the golden age of Hollywood. Debbie Reynolds. Debbie Reynolds became America's sweetheart almost overnight, her irrepressible smile and natural charisma endearing her to audiences of all ages. Yet the very innocence that made her famous also exposed her to the hidden dangers of Hollywood's inner circles. In the early years of her career, Debbie found herself invited to exclusive dinners and private meetings where the true negotiations for stardom took place, not in boardrooms, but in the shadows, where promises were made and expectations set without a single word written down. It was said that Debbie's rapid ascent in Hollywood was facilitated by more than just her undeniable talent. Her youth and fresh-faced beauty became a tantalizing promise to those who saw actresses as prizes to be won, rather than artists to be nurtured. The invisible marks of these early arrangements lingered with her throughout her life, private scars hidden beneath a public persona of perpetual optimism. Debbie's resilience in the face of such exploitation is legendary. She went on to build an impressive career, refusing to let the compromises forced upon her define her legacy. Instead, she used her experiences to advocate for others, speaking candidly in her later years about the challenges she faced. Debbie Reynolds' story is both a celebration of triumph over adversity and a sobering reminder of the invisible costs paid by Hollywood's brightest stars. Susan Hayward. Susan Hayward was the embodiment of fierce ambition and iron-willed determination, a woman whose journey through Hollywood was as tumultuous as it was triumphant. Her rise from humble beginnings to Oscar-winning glory was marked by relentless struggle and countless auditions, each one another test in a system designed to extract the highest possible price for entry. From her very first screen tests, Susan faced the brutal reality that talent alone would not open the doors to lasting fame. Stories circulated throughout the industry about the silent arrangements that governed access to major roles, arrangements in which Susan's youth and beauty became unspoken bargaining chips in private negotiations. The expectation was clear, even if never spoken aloud. To move ahead, she would need to make sacrifices that would never be reflected in any official contract. Hollywood insiders whispered about meetings behind closed doors, about producers whose influence depended less on artistic vision and more on their ability to extract compliance from the next rising star. Susan met these challenges head-on, her determination unbroken, even as she carried the weight of these hidden costs. She understood early on that her dream of stardom would exact a toll from her soul, a price paid not in dollars, but in pieces of herself given away, piece by piece, in exchange for each step up the Hollywood ladder. Her legacy is one of triumph and tragedy, a reminder that even the strongest spirits are not immune to the corrosive power of Hollywood's darkest deals. Rita Hworth. Rita Hworth, the original love goddess, was a vision of sensuality and mystery whose mere presence on screen could stop audiences in their tracks. But for all her beauty and charisma, Rita's path through Hollywood was fraught with manipulation and silent exploitation. Born Margarita Carmen Cancino, she was remade by the studio system, not just in name, but in every aspect of her being. Her transformation was emblematic of a system that demanded total surrender in exchange for a chance at immortality. From her earliest days, Rita was ushered into the private chambers and exclusive parties where the true business of Hollywood took place. Powerful men saw her not as an individual, but as a prize to be claimed, her innocence treated as a temporary commodity to be traded for contracts and stardom. It was said that her rise to fame was punctuated by silent deals, arrangements never put to paper, but understood by all. The price of admission to these upper echelons was her compliance with demands that extended far beyond her performance in front of the camera. Rita's later reflections on her life make it clear how deeply these experiences affected her. Her marriages, her heartbreaks, and her ultimate retreat from the public eye speak volumes about the cost exacted by Hollywood's golden machine. Rita Hayworth's legacy is not just one of unforgettable beauty, but of the quiet suffering endured by those whose dreams brought them into the orbit of power without mercy. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford's ascent from poverty to the heights of Hollywood stardom was legendary, a testament to her relentless drive and steely resolve. But Joan's journey, like so many of her contemporaries, was defined by the shadowy side of the dream factory. Ambitious and unyielding, she was well aware from the beginning that the price of entry into Hollywood's inner circle was steep and often paid in secret. Throughout her career, Joan was dogged by rumors of private meetings and hidden bargains, stories that painted a picture of a woman forced to navigate a gauntlet of powerful men whose interests were seldom purely professional. The whispers followed her through every stage of her rise, from her earliest chorus girl days to her reign as a queen of the silver screen. The pressure to conform to unspoken expectations was relentless, and the rewards for doing so were both intoxicating and cruel. It was said that Joan's willingness to make personal sacrifices was the true key to her staying power in an industry that devoured the naive and unprepared. Joan Crawford never apologized for her ambition, nor for the choices she made along the way. Her memoirs and public statements hint at a lifetime spent fighting for control over her destiny, even as she acknowledged the compromises that made her success possible. She remains an enduring symbol of both the triumphs and the tragedies born from Hollywood's secret deals and silent exchanges. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor's journey from precocious child star to legendary leading lady was the stuff of Hollywood dreams. With her striking violet eyes and magnetic presence, she became one of the most beloved and most scrutinized women in film history. But behind the glamour and tabloid headlines was a story marked by profound vulnerability and hidden sacrifice. Elizabeth entered the industry at a time when youth and beauty were seen as commodities to be leveraged by those in power. Insiders whispered about the intense pressures placed on her from the earliest days of her career. She was surrounded by agents, producers, and studio executives who treated her innocence as a bargaining chip in a game that was always played behind the scenes. The expectation that she would trade her most personal treasures for access to fame was never spoken, but always understood. Elizabeth's meteoric rise was thus accompanied by a series of silent bargains, choices she was forced to make long before she could fully comprehend their consequences. Despite the challenges, Elizabeth Taylor emerged as a powerful force in her own right, refusing to let her story be defined solely by what was taken from her. Her courage in later life to speak about the dark side of fame, and her efforts to protect the next generation from similar exploitation, stand as a testament to her enduring strength. Elizabeth's legacy is not only that of a screen icon, but as a survivor of Hollywood's most hidden and painful rites of passage. The stories you've heard tonight reveal a Hollywood where ambition and innocence collided in ways history rarely dares to remember. These legends paid a price few could imagine, leaving behind a legacy not just of brilliance, but of silent struggles and resilience. If you found these hidden truths eye-opening, don't let the conversation end here. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories from the world of classic Hollywood. Your support helps us shine a light on the past and ensures these voices, once silenced, will never be forgotten. What do you think about these untold sacrifices? Tell us in the comments below.